Welcome back to Coffee and Conversation. For all you Audie fans, he's not with us right now. He is outside playing. It got up to 60 today. So, yeah, my bad boy wants to be out. It is still overcast. It's been raining on and off the last several days, but it's warm. He's out there. So he will probably come back home because, frankly, he likes the warmth, but he'd rather have the sunshine. So if it's not really sunny, he tends to slink back home and then sit up on the porch steps or something where he can be nearby in case, heaven forbid, it starts to rain and he needs to get back in the house very, very quickly. But I'm happy for him. I'm sure you are too. You know, just, when this cat is happy, my life is so much easier. But I do think we'll probably see him later on. So I wanted to follow up on yesterday. I showed you my Miskatonic University sweatshirt and said, you know, brownie points to the people who can tell me what's wrong with this picture. Miskatonic University is a completely fictional university. It was created by H.P. Lovecraft, who was a sort of fantasy, horror, elements of science fiction writer from the early 20th century. It's hard to pigeonhole him because, as any Lovecraft fan will tell you, you can throw him comfortably into many, many modern genres, and he just fits beautifully. Lovecraft fans are a very special breed, and Miskatonic was his mythical university that he located in the town of Arkham, Massachusetts, and that may be familiar to even those of you who are not Lovecraft fans, because Arkham has later showed up in DC Comics, in Batman. That's Arkham Asylum, where they send the lunatics, which, by the way, was an homage to Lovecraft. So, yes, there are a couple of things that resonate with me about Miskatonic. It is in Essex County, Massachusetts, and, well, fictionally, of course, it doesn't really exist, but that's where Lovecraft located it. My father was born in Lynn, in Essex County, Massachusetts, and Miskatonic, at least theoretically in a fantasy universe, is very close to Lynn. That is also where my father is buried. So yes, I have the daddy connection. But also, when I lived in Providence, I lived a few blocks from the cemetery in which Lovecraft is buried. And I used to walk there almost every day. And his grave marker says, Howard Phillips Lovecraft, and then in capital letters, I am Providence, which, as I always say, is probably the most Providence thing I've ever heard anywhere. So, yeah, definitely strong Lovecraft connection. I used to take rubbings of the grave and send that, copies of the marker, to friends and Lovecraft fans. If I came across anybody in my travels who liked Lovecraft, I would just send them a rubbing of the grave. So, yeah, that's what that is all about. And yes, I do tell people I actually went to Miskatonic. Usually I tell them that I majored in, reanimation science and minored in alchemy. Depends on my mood. You'd be amazed how many people will buy into a story like that. All right, we're going to take a quick break for the intro, and we will be right back. So, Audie is back with us now. Yeah, that little foray into the great outdoors, even though it's warm, as you can see, only lasted a few minutes. I was afraid that the overcast skies would drive him back in, and yes, he is back with us. Do you want to, here, come on. Say hi. Yeah, I'm going to show you his handiwork later. But my bad boy, oh, you are such a bad boy. My bad boy has come over to say hello, and I am going to pop him onto the floor because he's a terrible distraction when I'm filming. I wanted to talk to you all about a health issue, and it's one that I have been aware of, but it really sort of came home to me fairly recently. I didn't take it seriously. I should have. I didn't realize what the potential consequences were, so I'm going to share it with you. Because, hey, the whole point of this channel is let me make the mistakes so you don't have to. And yes, he's back. Okay, I want to start you off with a story from my childhood. And this is going back more than 60 years when I was a little girl in Boston. And one day I was walking, I don't know, home from school, home from the store, whatever. And I had to pass the house of a neighbor down the street, Mrs. Kościuszko. Oh gosh, I got that almost right. And she was she was elderly. And she wore a black dress and these heavy black orthopedic shoes and a hairnet that came down to the middle of her forehead, as they did in those days. And all of the neighborhood children were terrified of her. The talk was that she was a witch and she would turn you into something unpleasant if you got on her bad side. So whenever I passed her house, it was on the other side of the street. I would just cross over and go that way, because Mrs. Kościuszko was always outside, always washing, scrubbing, sweeping her front steps. That was her thing. She had the cleanest steps in the neighborhood, I will say that for her. And I was obviously walking in some state of dejection. I must have been, because she called across the street to me and said, "Why are you looking so glum?" I remember that because it was the first time I had ever encountered the word glum. I had to look it up. And I assumed that what she meant to say is, "Why are you walking on the other side of the street as if you are afraid of me because I am an old witch?" Regardless, I called back to her because, of course, when a witch speaks to you, you better answer, or again, they'll turn you into something unpleasant. And I said, "It's just, yeah, I'm tired. I don't feel like walking. I have to go home." Or words to that effect, probably with a lot of stammering, because again, I was small, she was the neighborhood witch. And she said to me, and here's where the teachable moment comes in, "You should be ashamed of yourself. You don't want to walk. There are people walking on crutches, in wheelchairs from the war." Now remember, this would have been the early 1960s. World War II had just ended like 15 years earlier. The Korean War had ended maybe 5 years earlier. So, yeah, war injuries were a factor in her life in a way they were not a factor in mine. You should be ashamed of yourself. You complain about walking, and there are people on crutches, in wheelchairs. They would give everything they own to be able to do what you turn your nose up to. That stayed with me. And to this day, and I am an avid walker, to this day, every time I walk, I always keep it in the back of my mind that there are people out there who would give plenty just to be able to stand up and walk. So, what does this have to do with anything? Well, usually we retain things in our minds because for whatever reason it had a major impact on us at the time. For me, it was talking to an old woman I believed to be a witch. It was picking up a new word, glum, and it was getting a new perspective on something that 5 minutes earlier I had considered a hardship. I got to walk all the way. I have no idea where I was walking from, but I was young enough, small enough, so that it couldn't have been more than a couple of blocks because I wouldn't have been allowed to go further than that. So, yeah, that was my teachable moment. I'm throwing this out because one of the things I discovered fairly recently is that it is not good to sit. I know, sounds like a ridiculous no-brainer. Of course, it's not good to sit. We should be getting up. We should be moving around. But I found, especially in the wake of the last knee replacement surgery, when it was a long time before I was able to get into physical therapy for it, and I have to be fair and say there was a period of time before the surgery when I wasn't getting around easily, and consequently I was spending more time sitting. It all sort of ganged up on me, and I suddenly found that I was fine when I was sitting, but when I would get up, I would have a massive pain running down one of my legs. Now, I could stretch it out, I could walk it off. It only lasted a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes tops. But geez, it hurt. And I couldn't even, stand up straight because my body just wanted to stay in that sitting position. So even though I was on my feet, my body was still bent over. It was pretty scary. Now, I did what I always do in a situation like that. I looked up the information on the internet and began diagnosing myself. To be fair, I did in fact talk to my physical therapist. While I was looking things up, I did see my physical therapist. But I started to take a look at this. What is this? Why is it happening? Well, this is an unusual consequence of sitting too much for too long, but it's one of many. So what are the medical consequences? Sitting for too long can elevate your blood pressure. It can elevate your blood sugar levels. And in my case, it can give you massive crippling pains because it accustoms your muscles to remaining in that flexed position. So you stand up and they're not happy anymore. So why are we talking about this? Because a lot of us are sedentary. A lot of us are sedentary because of the nature of our work. We are sedentary because we are getting older and it gets harder to move around. We are sedentary because we live in a world where everything we need is at our fingertips and on our desks or coffee tables or whatever, right in front of us. This is not the world our parents and grandparents lived in, not by a long shot, but we are in this little universe, and a lot of us have gotten a little too comfortable in it. So, I wanted to talk to you about getting up and walking. Now, here's where the research comes in. You should be getting up for a couple of minutes per half hour of sitting. And you should be getting up at least once every hour. So, every hour, get up, walk around for 5 minutes. Every half hour, get up, stand, stretch, whatever. And there are so many easy ways to do this if you need that constant reminder. We all have cell phones. You can set an alarm on your phone. By the way, I've tried that. I hate it. That alarm going off every hour to remind me to get up and walk around drove me crazy. So what are some of the other things? Well, one of the things that has not driven me crazy is I like having something to drink right next to me all the time. Okay, here we go. Fresca. Ooh, that can made an interesting noise. I like having something to drink while I'm working. I have my Fresca with me right now because I can't just get up and take off and go get a drink because I'm filming. And this is one of the few times in my day where I am really stuck in this chair in front of the camera. Most of the time, if I am working, if I'm on the internet, if I'm researching, even things like editing videos, whatever, I can get up. My work is not going to go anywhere. Nothing awful is going to happen if I get up, take a couple of minutes to go into the kitchen, and get something to drink. And that's one of the best tricks I've been able to use for myself. Ordinarily, that can of whatever, that bottle of whatever, lives in the kitchen. So I must get up if I want to drink. I have to get up, go into the kitchen, take that drink. I'm always tempted to take the bottle or the can or the whatever it is. Sometimes it's a coffee cup. Take it back with me, because that's how I've always done it. Even when I was working in an office, I always had a cup of coffee, because, yeah, I worked caffeinated. That was just my baseline back in those days. And it was always right next to me. I didn't even think about it. Now I have to get up, go into the other room, get that drink. It does two things for me. One, it definitely decreases the amount of caffeine I am taking in, which is probably a very good thing, but it also gets me up and moving. And it doesn't have to be much movement. A little bit of movement will do it. A minute or two. Stand up, stretch, twist your body around, whatever makes you happy. But we need to do this. And I know, remember, Mrs. Kościuszko told me, not everyone can do this. It's always with me. And for people who are not able to actually physically get up and stretch, my hope is that you're talking to your doctors, your physical therapists, and they're giving you alternative forms of exercise, because this sedentary position that we are in, that is very normal for us now, is very unnatural. It's abnormal. This is not what our bodies were meant to do. And for most of us, this is not what we were doing for our entire lives. For most of us, when we were kids, we were running around like little maniacs. When we were teenagers, we were here and there and everywhere else. And then life moves on. We end up with families to take care of, and we're all over the place all the time. But then, later in life, suddenly all of those things that were just pulling us in every possible direction are not part of our lives anymore, so we can sit. So we do it. So we are quietly raising our blood pressure, raising our blood sugar, and straining our muscles in ways that we never imagined were possible. So I really felt I needed to throw this out, mostly because even though, yeah, this is a YouTube channel, it's not a public service announcement, but I do feel that we should look at these things. We should talk about it. We should incorporate health and well-being into our discussions. And I think to some small extent, we really are doing that. I read a lot of comments directly related to health and wellness in the video comments. So I think some of us are already there, but I think we need to be more mindful. And the reason I took a look at this was when I actually started to research it, I realized this is like medical knowledge that is out there. If you go to a doctor, if you go to a physical therapist, if you go to anyone in the medical profession, they are going to all tell you the same thing. Get up, move around. But for some reason, it's not in the forefront of our consciousness every day. We are not looking at this, getting up in the morning saying, I must run around, I must move, I must do things. I suppose some of us are, and frankly, I envy the people who are, because it's not anything I ever thought about, mostly because I never needed to, because I automatically moved around a great deal. Now I'm looking at this at a different perspective in my life. And I'm going to blame COVID, at least in part, for this, because I have to say my lifestyle became a lot more sedentary during the pandemic. I think that happened to most of us. And now I need to start dealing with that because it's one of the COVID after effects that I truly was not aware of. Certainly, I never thought that just sitting in front of a computer for hours on end would make it difficult for me to get up and walk around after that period of time. Well, it did. Now, the upside is, after a brief period where it was difficult for me to get up and stretch out, it went away. Mostly because I made a point of getting up more frequently, and now I don't have to worry about it. So it is a situation that has a quick and easy fix. But still, I got myself into that situation in the first place simply because of ignorance. I did not realize that sitting would do that to me. I had some vague idea that sitting around like a lump in a chair would have negative impacts, but I always thought those negative impacts would be a reduction in my energy level and weight gain. It's very much where I thought it would stop. No. It took very little research to figure out that it has impacts that go far beyond that. And those are just the impacts that I focused on in my research. There are probably even more. So that is why I am putting this out in front of you. We should all get up. And it is so easy to do. So there was something else I wanted to show you. So I am going to get up and show you. All right, where is it? It's right here. Can you see it? Can you see the 3 little cat claw marks? Yes. This is one of my favorite sweaters. And my bad boy left 3 little claw marks in his effort to climb up and get onto my shoulder. And I am unhappy. And the sweater was not expensive because, my mother bargains. I paid $40 for this from Macy's 2 years ago. I am disappointed that I am not able to get more use out of it. And now that I've shown you that this is a chewed up sweater, I'm probably not even going to be able to wear it in videos anymore. Whereas I could have if I kept my mouth shut. So maybe I should have kept my mouth shut. But I am not happy. It was not expensive, so it doesn't represent a great financial loss. But it's cashmere and it's soft and I love it. And it was a great bargain, and I hate having to give up my bargain pieces. So yeah, I am not happy. That's another reason the bad boy is on my naughty list. Also, I've noticed since he's been sleeping on the back of my chair, instead of having a nice rounded top, the back of that chair has a little cat-shaped divot in it now. So I think I'm going to have to find him another place to sleep. But yeah, so that's what my bad boy has been up to. All right. Anyway, that was what I wanted to talk to you about. Oh, wait. Kościuszko. I'm going back to Mrs. Kościuszko. One of the reasons that I remember the name so clearly is because I was little at the time, just, little goober. And I had whatever level of education one could be expected to have, being that small. And I had never heard the name Kościuszko before. I remember my father saying whoever named that woman did it while they were eating a mouthful of mashed potatoes, and I think he was probably right. But Tadeusz Kościuszko was a Revolutionary War hero. Came from Poland. I believe he was Polish and Lithuanian, probably. Polish and Lithuanian, I'm going to stick with it. If it's different, I'll put up a note on the screen. He was an engineer in the 18th century. Came over, helped us win the revolution because his work in fortifications and military encampments and the like, that was extremely important. He was brilliant. He was also brilliant back home in his native Poland, but we owe him a great debt. And I remember later when I was studying U.S. history, coming across the name and thinking, oh, I know that name well. So yes, no matter what I may have thought of Mrs. Kościuszko, who was probably not really a witch, let me just point that out, she certainly came from a very noble family, and she certainly deserved whatever place she occupied in Boston. So that was my sort of finish up on the Kościuszko story. Keep in mind, you never know when those teachable moments are going to come along, and you never know who is going to hand you something that will stay with you for the rest of your life. So be open to it. For me, I've kept that for, 65 years maybe. Just a little bit of wisdom. Never take for granted what you've got, because there are always going to be other people who would give a lot to have it. For me, it's always present in my mind when I walk. There are a lot of people who can't do that, who would give anything to do that. So get up, do something, walk, move, and just be grateful you can still do it. All right. Thank you so much for being with us. We did get some Audie time. For those of you who join us for Just Chatting, it's 8 o'clock New York City time this evening. For everybody else, we'll be back here next weekend as always. So we're going to take a look at a slideshow on the way out. And in the meantime, have a terrific day.